I noticed my mother-in-law slipping something suspicious into my drink when she assumed I wasn't paying attention. "A special cocktail for my favorite son-in-law," she said with a smile that didn't quite reach her eyes. I thanked her politely, then subtly swapped glasses with her husband, who, conveniently, never missed an opportunity to criticize my career. 4 to 5 minutes later, everything started to unravel. My name is Julian Mercer. I'm 32, an independent photographer based in Asheville, North Carolina. I built my business from the ground up: weddings, wildlife, magazine features. It's demanding work, but it pays the bills if you're good at it. And I am. Still, to my in-laws, especially Diane, my profession has never seemed good enough. "So how's the little photography hobby going?" Gerald would ask during family dinners, making no effort to hide the condescension in his tone. He was an investment banker, a man who judged success by square footage and stock portfolios. Sunday dinners at their house were predictably miserable. Diane would hover over her daughter, fussing about trivial things, while Gerald would grill me about income and retirement plans. My wife, Haley, would squeeze my hand beneath the table, a quiet apology for her parents' behavior. I'd just come back from a week-long assignment in Montana, photographing bison in thigh-deep snow for National Geographic. I was drained, body aching, face windburned, but Haley insisted we attend her mother's birthday dinner. "Just a couple hours," she promised. I should have trusted the unease in my stomach when Diane cornered me in the kitchen. Her eyes flicked around the room, checking if we were alone, before she handed me the drink. Her fingers trembled ever so slightly as she said, "I made it just for you." Something felt off. I just didn't realize how off it truly was. Haley and I met 6 years ago at an art gallery showing my work. She was finishing her master's in environmental science. I was still trying to make a name for myself. We connected instantly. She understood my need to capture the world through a lens, and I respected her passion for preserving it. Her parents, however, were a different story. Gerald had made his disapproval clear from our very first meeting. He'd expected someone more traditional for Haley, someone with a desk job, a pension, and a 5-year plan. Someone exactly like him. Diane was more passive in her judgment. She'd compliment my photography but immediately follow it up with questions like, "Have you thought about something more stable?" At family gatherings, she'd introduce me as a photographer, not her son-in-law. For years, I tried to win them over. I brought expensive bottles of wine to dinners, casually dropped the names of high-profile clients, shared features I'd published in major magazines. Nothing worked. To them, I remained a passing phase in their daughter's life, a mistake she'd eventually grow out of. Last Christmas, I overheard Diane on the phone saying, "Haley could have married Thomas, orthopedic surgeon, family money, but she chose the creative one." The pause before creative made it sound like she was describing a chronic illness. Gerald wasn't as subtle. When Haley and I announced we were trying for a baby, he pulled me aside and said, "Kids are expensive, son. Maybe think about getting a real job before bringing one into the world." I never told Haley. She loved her parents, flaws and all, and I didn't want to force her into a position where she had to defend me. So I kept my mouth shut, smiled through every visit, shook Gerald's hand like nothing was wrong, and always praised Diane's cooking, even when it made my stomach turn. Still, the signs were there if I'd bothered to pay close attention. Like how Diane always called Haley into the kitchen whenever I shared exciting news about work. Or how I'd mysteriously be left out of family photos. Or when Gerald suggested Haley seek therapy for her impulsive decisions, staring right at me the whole time. I thought time would soften their judgment. I was wrong. That Friday, I came home from Montana utterly spent. I had a memory card full of stunning images that would more than cover our mortgage for the next few months. I took a long shower, ironed a button-down shirt, and drove us across town to Diane and Gerald's sprawling colonial in one of Asheville's wealthiest neighborhoods. Dinner began like it always did, Gerald boasting about a recent financial win, Diane adjusting the silverware with military precision, Haley's brother Owen and his wife Vanessa making small talk. I sat quietly, nursing a beer and silently counting down the minutes. After the meal, Diane announced she'd made her signature sangria for dessert and slipped into the kitchen. I offered to help carry the glasses. That's when I saw it. She had 2 glasses set apart from the others. As I walked in, she quickly poured something from a small, clear vial into one of them. It was colorless, didn't have a scent, and she tucked the vial away the second she noticed me behind her. "Oh, Julian, you don't need to help," she chirped, overly cheery. "This one's just for you. My special recipe." My throat went dry. There was a faint shimmer across the top of the liquid, barely noticeable, but it caught the light just enough. "Let me carry these," I said, casually taking both glasses from the counter. In the dining room, Gerald was glued to his phone, not even glancing up as I approached. "Sangria?" I asked, setting the tampered glass in front of him instead of drinking it myself. I watched Gerald lift a glass and take a sip, offering a casual excuse about preferring water with dessert to avoid drinking mine. Roughly 4 to 5 minutes later, his skin had gone ashen, beads of sweat gathered at his hairline, and he bolted from the table, one hand clutched to his stomach. The sounds that followed from the upstairs bathroom were unmistakable, loud, violent, and unmistakably painful. Diane's face turned the same color as the tablecloth the moment she realized what had happened. Across the room, her eyes locked onto mine, and in that single glance, something passed between us. Silent, chilling clarity. She had tried to drug me, and now she knew I knew. I didn't flinch, didn't accuse. I calmly ate my slice of chocolate cake while Haley rushed upstairs after her father. The rest of the night unfolded in confusion and excuses, Gerald blaming bad shellfish, Diane nervously seconding the theory. I stayed quiet, simply slipped the untouched glass, the one she had poured for me, into my coat pocket when no one was watching. But inside, something shifted. My anger wasn't fiery or chaotic. It was cold, focused, calculated. I wasn't going to let this slide. But I wouldn't fight them on their terms, either. They needed to be shown exactly who they were. That Monday, I brought the glass to Jason, an old client of mine who now ran a toxicology lab. He raised an eyebrow as I handed it over. "Personal or business?" he asked. "Family," I said. 3 days later, Jason called. "Julian, that drink tested positive for benzodiazepines. It wouldn't kill someone, but it was enough to sedate a person for hours, maybe even cause memory blackouts. Where did this come from?" I thanked him, requested a printed report, and avoided the question. That night, I told Haley I needed to skip Sunday dinners for a while, blamed an upcoming gallery show. She was disappointed, but didn't push. I didn't mention the lab results. Not yet. I needed more. Over the next couple of weeks, I did my homework. Turns out, Diane had prescriptions for Xanax from 3 separate doctors. Records showed she'd been overlapping doses for years, far exceeding safe limits. The more I searched, the more stories surfaced. Whispers about her behavior at neighborhood gatherings. Allegations of stolen jewelry at her country club. Quiet scandals swept under expensive rugs. Her family had spent years keeping those stories buried. I gathered everything. Medical records, prescriptions, social gossip, anonymous messages. And waited. My opportunity came when Haley casually mentioned that her mom needed new photos for a social media page. She specifically asked if you could take them, she said, raising her eyebrows in surprise. "I'd be happy to," I told her. That Saturday, I showed up to the house alone. My camera bag slung over my shoulder. A sealed envelope in my jacket pocket. Diane greeted me in full armor, hair perfect, dressed like she was headed to a gala. "Gerald's at the office," she said, ushering me in. "Before we start," I said quietly, "there's something you should see." I handed her the envelope. Inside, a copy of the toxicology report, printouts of her overlapping prescriptions, a brief note from Jason confirming the drug concentration in the drink. Her hand began to tremble as she read through the documents. "This is ridiculous," she whispered. "I would never." "We both know what happened," I interrupted. "What I don't know is why." Her face tightened, and for a moment she didn't speak. Then came the words I'd expected, but not with any less sting. "You're not enough for my daughter. You never will be. A man should offer security, not snapshots." "So you thought drugging her husband was a safer option?" I kept my voice calm. "It wouldn't have harmed you," Diane snapped. "Just made you sick enough to miss that ridiculous gallery opening you've been bragging about for months. Haley needed to see you as unreliable." I let her words hang in the air like smoke. Here's how this is going to go, I said quietly. You're going to tell Gerald what you did. Then, both of you are going to treat me with basic respect. Not because you had a sudden change of heart, but because the alternative is far worse. She scoffed, a brittle laugh with no real confidence behind it. Haley would never believe you over us. I lifted my camera bag. Maybe not, I said, but she'll believe toxicology reports, prescription records, and neighbors who have their own stories. So go ahead, bet your relationship with your daughter if you're that sure. I walked out without taking a single photo. Later that night, Diane called Haley sobbing, claimed I'd been inappropriate during the photo shoot, accused me of being aggressive and unprofessional. When Haley confronted me, I couldn't keep the truth from her anymore. I showed her everything. The lab results, the overlapping prescriptions, even years of increasingly venomous texts from her mother. She wouldn't do this, Haley kept repeating, but her voice wavered. She wasn't trying to convince me. She was trying to convince herself. The next day, she met with her parents. I didn't go. When she came home, her eyes were puffy and red. My dad says it's all a misunderstanding, she said in a low voice. That you're trying to divide the family because you're insecure about your job. I didn't say a word, just nodded. I'd expected this defense. What do you think? I asked. She didn't respond. She just climbed into bed and turned her back to me. I had finally pushed back, but instead of finding solid ground, I'd walked right into their trap. Now I was the outsider, the one casting shadows, the one asking too many questions. And worst of all, they'd seeded doubt in the only person whose belief truly mattered to me. For 2 weeks, Haley barely spoke to me. She went to her parents' place without me, came back quiet and withdrawn. I buried myself in work, spending long nights at my studio, trying to weather the fallout. Then, a package arrived at the studio. No return address. Just my name written in unfamiliar handwriting. Inside was a USB drive and a short note. You should see this. Vanessa, Owen's wife. I plugged it in immediately. The files were home surveillance footage from Gerald and Diane's house. The timestamp matched the night of the birthday dinner. The first video showed Diane in the kitchen, alone, carefully pouring something into a glass from a small vial. Then came the moment I walked in, took the glasses, and brought them out. Gerald was clearly seen drinking from the one she'd tampered with. But that wasn't all. More clips followed. Footage after we had left. Diane screaming at Gerald, furious that he drank the wrong glass. Gerald shouting back, "This isn't the first time you pulled something like this." I watched the video 3 times, hands tightening on the keyboard. This wasn't just proof of what she'd done to me. It was a pattern, and Gerald knew. The next clip was from 2 days later. They were in the living room, arguing. "He knows what you did," Gerald said. "So what?" Diane snapped. "It's his word against mine. Haley would never side with him over us. And if she does, then she's not the daughter I raised." Her voice turned icy. "Don't worry. I've already started working on her, planting doubt about their marriage. By the time I'm done, she'll be filing for divorce and think it was her own idea." I sat there frozen, laptop glowing in the dark, heart pounding in my ears. This wasn't just manipulation. It was a long, calculated strategy to control Haley's life and sever any connection that didn't fit their design. I wasn't the first. I called Vanessa right away. "Why did you send this to me?" Her voice was soft, tired, because they did the same thing to me when I married Owen. They tried to break us up for 2 years. Told him I wasn't good enough. Nearly worked. "Why didn't you tell us?" "Owen doesn't know. He worships his father, believes everything he says. Every time I tried to explain, he said I was paranoid. I couldn't go through it again, but I couldn't stand by and watch them do it to you." The next morning, I got a text from Gerald. "Let's talk. Just you and me. No wives." We met at his country club. He was already there, seated in a private lounge, a glass of bourbon in hand. He didn't bother to stand. "Julian," he said with a sigh, "families are messy. My wife, she can be intense, overprotective, but she means well." "Drugging someone is your definition of meaning well?" He waved a hand like he was swatting away a bad idea. It was a mix-up. Diane's on anti-anxiety medication. Probably confused the drinks. I've seen the footage. Gerald. His expression changed instantly, like a switch had flipped. The friendly mask dropped, replaced by something harder. Sharper, what do you want? He asked, voice cold. Is this about money? I've always known, Gerald said coolly, swirling the bourbon in his glass. You didn't marry Haley for love. You saw her name, her lifestyle, and thought, jackpot. I'm not here to justify myself, I replied, calm but firm. I just want you both to stay out of our lives. Stop poisoning her against me. Stop meddling in our marriage. He leaned forward, a smirk creeping across his face. You think this is the first time we've dealt with someone like you? Opportunists orbiting our family, hoping to latch on? Haley always comes back where she belongs. Then, almost casually, he added, ask her about Thomas. My stomach dropped. Who? Her ex-fiancé, he said, savoring the words. Before you, great guy. Doctor, smart, but we didn't like where he came from. Took us 6 months to convince her he wasn't right. She broke it off, ran home in tears. He smiled, a cool, knowing smile. History has a way of repeating itself. I drove home in silence, his words echoing. That night, I called Bethany, Haley's college roommate. Thomas, she said, voice tight. God, that was awful. He was amazing. She was in love with him. But her parents, they set him up, convinced her he was cheating. Fake messages, planted evidence. He tried to explain, but by the time she realized the truth, she didn't trust him anymore. It all clicked. This wasn't just about me. It was about control. They'd done this before, more than once. But I didn't go to Haley with this. Not yet. Instead, I started gathering proof. I reached out to Thomas. He was hesitant at first, but once I explained, he sent me screenshots, emails between him and Haley, showing how her parents slowly unraveled their relationship. I contacted old boyfriends, old friends Haley had inexplicably lost touch with. The same story repeated. Her parents disapproved, and then, one way or another, the person vanished from her life. Vanessa sent more security footage, clips of Diane and Gerald plotting after that dinner. When she leaves him, Gerald said in one video, we'll get her back here. She can manage the foundation. Meet someone with the right background. I compiled it all, texts, videos, interviews, onto a drive. Then I invited Owen and Vanessa for dinner. I didn't tell Haley why. After dessert, I hooked my laptop up to the TV. There's something you need to watch, I said. For the next hour, the living room was silent except for the audio of betrayal. Haley sat frozen, face pale, while Owen muttered, this can't be real. This can't be them. When the last clip ended, Haley turned to me, tears streaking down her cheeks. Why didn't you tell me? Because you had to see it, I said. Not just what they've done to me, but what they've been doing to you your whole life. Owen shot up from the couch, furious. These videos, this is edited. My parents wouldn't, they couldn't. Vanessa gently placed a hand on his arm. They did it to us, too. Why do you think they only started being nice to me after I had James? Because a grandchild gave them leverage. His face went ghost white. You never told me. I tried, she said quietly, but you wouldn't hear it. That night, as we got ready for bed, Haley curled into me. I need time to process this, she whispered. But I believe you, and I'm sorry I doubted you. The next morning, Diane called. Haley answered and put her on speaker. Sweetheart, Diane said in a rehearsed, sugary voice. Your father and I were thinking, maybe you should come stay with us for a while. Clear your head. Some time apart could help your marriage. Haley didn't hesitate. Mom, she said, voice flat. I've seen the videos. Silence. What videos? The ones showing you drugging Julian. The ones where you and Dad talk about sabotaging my marriage. Another pause. Then, whatever he showed you, it's fake. You know Julian has always been jealous of our family. Stop, Haley said sharply. We're coming over tonight. All of us. And we're going to talk. No more lies. After she hung up, she turned to me. They're going to deny everything. They'll try to twist it. Blame you. I nodded. I know. So, what's the plan? For the first time in weeks, I smiled. We show them who I really am. Not just a photographer, but someone who knows how to tell a story. That evening, we arrived at Gerald and Diane's estate. My camera equipment slung over my shoulder, heart steady. Owen and Vanessa were already there, stiff on the couch. Gerald stood with confidence, drink in hand. I understand there's been a little confusion, he said, with that same condescending smile. No confusion, I said, setting up my tripod. I'm documenting this for the family archives. This is private, Diane snapped. Exactly, I said. Family business. And I'm part of this family, though you've done your best to push me out. For 2 hours, we laid it all bare. The spiked drink, the manipulation, the ex's push away, the pattern of coercion that shaped Haley and Owen's lives. Every denial they muttered, every lie they offered, I counted with clips, emails, texts. Their faces paled. Their confidence eroded. Finally, Haley stood. I love you both. But this, what you've done, is inexcusable. You don't get to control my life anymore. Owen nodded, jaws set. We make our own choices. Our own families. Diane started to cry. Not from guilt, but from the loss of power. Gerald just sat in stunned silence, as if the concept of losing had never occurred to him. Before we left, I handed Gerald a USB drive. This is everything. The footage, the documents, the testimonies. He looked up warily. What are you doing with this? Giving it to you, I said. I'm not going to ruin your name. That would hurt Haley, and I won't do that. But if either of you ever try to sabotage our marriage again, if you so much as whisper a lie about me, copies will go out. To your friends, your business partners, your precious country club. For the first time since I met him, Gerald looked at me not with disdain or dismissal, but with a flicker of something close to respect. I misjudged you, Gerald said, his voice tinged with something that sounded almost like admiration. You did, I replied evenly. 6 months passed. Haley and Owen began therapy, slowly untangling the damage their parents had woven into their lives. Diane and Gerald kept their distance. Occasional texts arrived, polite but impersonal. They were honoring the boundaries withdrawn, at least outwardly. Then, around the holidays, we received the dinner invitation. A new beginning. The card read in Diane's handwriting. Haley wanted to go. They are still my parents, she said. Maybe they are really trying. I agreed, though silently. I doubted they'd truly changed. Their home looked the same. Warm lights in the windows, the scent of cinnamon and rosemary drifting from the kitchen. Diane had outdone herself, a feast of nostalgia. Gerald was unusually cordial, asking thoughtful questions about my work, even cracking a joke or two that didn't feel loaded. After dinner, he invited me into his study. A glass of scotch was already waiting. I've been thinking, he said, pouring one for himself. Photography has been good to you, but have you thought about expanding? I could open a door for you at the firm. Junior partner, strong salary, benefits, a future. I accepted the glass but didn't sip. Why? I asked. What's in it for you? Your family, he said smoothly, and I respect how you handled everything. You looked out for Haley. You held your ground. That's admirable. I set the glass on the table, untouched. I'm grateful for the offer, but no. His smile faltered, just slightly. Julian, be reasonable. This is an olive branch. A gesture. It's another leash, I said. A quiet attempt to control the narrative again. You can't buy your way into my choices, and it kills you that Haley loves me without your approval. The mask dropped. Everyone has a price, he muttered, his voice suddenly cold. Then you'll never understand your daughter, I said, standing. Because she doesn't. Back in the living room, Diane was showing Haley old family albums. You were so happy here, she cooed. Don't you remember? Haley met my eyes across the room. Something in my expression told her what had just happened. She straightened, then gently closed the album. "Mom, Dad," she said, her voice clear and strong. "We have something to share." Everyone turned. "I'm pregnant. Julian and I are expecting. 3 months along." The silence was immediate and real. For once, their surprise wasn't feigned. Diane recovered first, rushing in with teary congratulations. Gerald followed more slowly, offering a stiff handshake and a forced smile. "Congratulations," he said. "Thank you," I replied. Then I lowered my voice. "And just so we're clear, this child will never be part of your games. Ever." He gave a small, reluctant nod. He understood. A few weeks later, we received a certified envelope from Gerald's lawyers. Inside was a deed to our home, the house we'd been renting. Also included, legal paperwork for a trust fund in our unborn child's name. No message, no catch, just signatures and transfers. It wasn't an apology. Gerald didn't know how to apologize. But it was something, a concession, an admission that we had chosen our own path, and they couldn't reroute it. That summer, our daughter arrived. We named her Eliza, after my grandmother. When Diane and Gerald came to the hospital, they brought flowers and a silver rattle. They kept their visit short. No unsolicited parenting advice. No remarks about the future. Just quiet admiration for a child they would never control. As the months passed, things settled into something close to normal. Not warm, not close, but steady. They no longer tried to steer Haley's choices. They no longer questioned mine. One evening, as I edited portraits in my studio, Haley came in with Eliza resting against her shoulder. "My mom called," she said. "She wants us to come for Christmas." I paused. "What do you want?" "I think we should go," she said after a moment. "But with boundaries. We stay at a hotel. We leave when we feel like it. And they don't get alone time with Eliza." I nodded. "That sounds fair." She sat beside me and gently rocked Eliza. I used to think being successful meant making them proud, checking the right boxes, fitting into their version of life. "And now?" I asked. She looked at our daughter, then at me. "Now, I think success means standing by the people who matter, choosing what feels right, even when it's hard." 2 weeks before Christmas, a large envelope arrived at our door. Inside was Gerald's company's annual report. My photography was featured throughout, landscapes, portraits, architecture, all taken on my own terms. No direction, no approval needed. Tucked inside was a handwritten note. "Hi, the best photographer I know. Thought you'd want a copy. GBL." It wasn't a peace offering. It wasn't reconciliation. It was respect, or the closest thing Gerald could offer to it. I didn't call to thank him. We both knew this wasn't about gratitude. It was about recognizing where the lines had been redrawn and who had drawn them. That spring, I opened my first gallery downtown. On opening night, Haley stood beside me, Eliza on her hip. My parents flew in from Oregon. Friends, clients, artists filled the room. Diane and Gerald came too. They stayed an hour. Diane held Eliza briefly, but only under Haley's watchful eye. Gerald shook my hand and nodded at the prints lining the walls. "Well done," he said. Then they left. Quietly, respectfully, without advice or critique. As we locked up, Haley asked, "Do you think they've changed?" I thought for a moment. "No," I said finally, "but they've accepted they can't change us. And maybe that's enough." Later, we sat on the porch, the night air cool and still. Eliza slept upstairs, the stars bright above the hills. And I realized something I hadn't been able to put into words until now. I didn't win by playing Gerald and Diane's game. I won by refusing to play it at all. I built something honest, protected what mattered, carved out a life defined by love, not approval. That was my victory, and it was the kind that lasted.